To you, which is simply to say that the threshold of 15% of the parliamentary party seeking a vote of confidence in the Prime Minister has been passed. Therefore, a vote of confidence will take place within the rules of the 1922 committee. That vote will take place this evening in the House of Commons between 6 and 8 o'clock, and we will announce the result shortly thereafter. There will be arrangements for proxy votes for any colleagues who can't be present in person in Westminster, and we'll notify colleagues of those arrangements in the near future.
Did you communicate the news directly to the Prime Minister? How did he react?
I'm not going to go into detail of that. I have followed the rules that we have in place. I notified the Prime Minister yesterday that the threshold had been reached, and we agreed the timetable for a confidence vote to take place. And he shared my view, which is also in line with the rules that we have in place, that that vote should happen as soon as could reasonably take place, and that would be today.
Sir Graham Brady there confirming that at least 54 Tory MPs have written to him asking for a change at the top. Downing Street has said Boris Johnson welcomes the opportunity to make his case to MPs, describing it as a chance to end months of speculation and allow the government to draw a line and move on. Well, let's take a look at what this means. Tanya Francis looks at the implications for Boris Johnson and the possible outcomes from tonight's vote.
Boris Johnson is facing a vote of no confidence in his leadership of the Conservative Party after at least 54 rebel MPs wrote to the party's 1922 committee to call for a change in leadership. Sir Graham Brady, chair of the 1922 committee, will oversee the confidence vote. Under Tory rules, MPs will vote in a secret ballot on whether they have confidence in the Prime Minister. If Mr Johnson loses, the party will stage a leadership race. Mr Johnson will not be allowed to stand. If the Prime Minister wins the vote, he will be safe from another challenge for a year. Conservative MPs will be weighing up many things as they decide how to vote. Mr Johnson led the party to victory in the 2019 general election with a big majority. But he has been fined by the police over Partygate, the first sitting PM to receive such a penalty. The Conservative Party has been lagging behind Labour in opinion polls since December, and the Tories face serious challenges from Labour and the Lib Dems in two upcoming by-elections, each sparked by a Tory MP having had to resign in disgrace. With the general election due to take place by May 2024, Tory MPs will have to decide if Mr Johnson can revive their party's fortunes.
Well, let's hear what the Labour leader makes of tonight's vote. He's been speaking to LBC's Nick Ferrari.
Oh, look, I think they've got to show some leadership and vote against the Prime Minister. He's lost the trust, I think, of the country. I think that's pretty clear on all the evidence that I've seen. But also, Justin Norman was interesting in the letter that he put out this morning. He's also got no plan for the country. And I think those two things mean that it's in the national interest that he goes. Now, obviously, there are some people in my party saying, no, Keir, it's very good that he stays because he's so damaged. It's actually helpful for the Labour Party. But looking at the national interest, I think Tory MPs have got to step up, show leadership and get rid of him.
Well, Mr Johnson spent the afternoon trying to drum up support. He addressed backbench MPs ahead of the vote. There has been support for him, and not just from the Cabinet.
We've got to accept that what happened in Downing Street was irresponsible and reckless, and I in no way defend some of the parties and so on that went on. But the Prime Minister has paid the price for that, not just by being fined, but in the constant attacks and the way he's had to defend his position. And I don't think it's in the best interest of the country that A, we're having this vote of confidence, and B, that we are likely, or there is a slim possibility of a leadership election. That would be an appalling distraction for 6 or 7 weeks when the Prime Minister and his team need to be focusing on the energy crisis, the cost of living, rebuilding the NHS after the pandemic, the situation in Ukraine, and scores of other issues.
Well, the vote is taking place as we speak. At least 180 Conservative MPs would have to vote against the PM for him to stand down as party leader. The result is expected to be announced at around 9 p.m. Well, let's move on. It's been a difficult return to work for many following the long bank holiday weekend. The RMT union's strike on the Underground has led to long queues for bus services as Downing Street condemn the walkout as deeply disappointing. Station staff are taking part in industrial action in a row over jobs and pensions. It's led to the closure of most lines, with transport bosses urging Londoners to work from home where possible. Services are unlikely to be back to normal before mid-morning tomorrow. The union is angry at changes to pensions and the proposal to axe hundreds of jobs as part of plans to make TfL more financially sustainable. Well, transport bosses insist no one will be made redundant. A few other headlines now. A 32-year-old man has been charged with the murder of the rapper Hypo. The musician, whose real name was Lamar Jackson, was stabbed at a party in Woodford Green in East London in the early hours of Friday morning. Laurie John Phillip from Enfield has been accused of carrying out the attack. He was due to appear at Barkingside magistrates today. A fire has destroyed a home on one of the most expensive roads in London. 6 fire engines and around 40 firefighters rushed to the house alight on the Bishops Avenue, dubbed Billionaires Row, in Hampstead. The brigade was called at 3:45 a.m. and the fire was under control by 6 o'clock this morning. The property is believed to be empty at the time of the fire, so there was no reports of any injuries. Gatwick Airport has apologised to a disabled passenger who was left on a plane for more than 90 minutes after it landed. A picture of Victoria Brignell left on the jet was shared on social media over the weekend. She was initially told it would take less than an hour to help her from the aircraft. The former para-Olympian Baroness Tanni Gray-Thompson was among those to criticise the airport. Gatwick said what happened was unacceptable. The motoring group, the RAC, has described new fuel prices as frightening. The average cost per litre for petrol has now reached a record high of 177.9 pence, while a tank of diesel will now set you back more than £100 on average. The RAC called for more government intervention, with prices expected to continue to rise. And a little more on the Queen's birthday honours. Among those being recognised was the Felix Project trustee, Jane Byam-Shaw. She was given an OBE for services to the community in London. The Felix Project is now the capital's largest food redistribution charity. Shaw said it was an absolute privilege to have had the opportunity to play a role in building this wonderful charity. And following a donation drive earlier this year where shoppers were given vouchers in return for their old jeans, a new piece of art has been unveiled at Canary Wharf. Called Urban Refuge, the installation is the work of Ian Berry and aims to celebrate World Environment Day. It's been put on show at Jubilee Place Mall. Let's just look at the weather before we head into a quick break now. A dry night to come this evening, overnight lows of around 12 degrees. Tuesday looks like it will offer more in the way of sunshine and temperatures will reach around 22 degrees C. Humid and thundery into Wednesday though, with the risk of some very heavy downpours in places. Right, so stay with us. We're heading into a short break, but plenty more on the way. Today is National Neuro Disabilities Awareness Day, and we'll hear from charity British Home, who hope to raise awareness of the challenges that 1 in 6 people face who suffer with some kind of brain injury.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather. And know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. Welcome back. Let's take a look at some other main headlines affecting Londoners this evening. Thousands of Brits have been left stuck overseas after flights back to the UK were cancelled. EasyJet, BA, TUI and Wizz Air passengers are among those who've seen their half-term and bank holiday breaks disrupted. The aviation industry is struggling to cope with the rise of demand for travel amid a severe staffing shortage triggered by the pandemic. The Defence Secretary has confirmed that the UK is sending its first long-range missiles to Ukraine despite a threat from Russia to the west. Ben Wallace said the weapons, similar to these seen here, will help Ukraine defend itself against Russia. It comes after the US announced last week it was also supplying a rocket system, while Moscow has threatened to increase its attacks on the country if the West continues to support it. And thousands of workers across the UK have moved to a 4-day week from today. The trial involves around 70 companies and is thought to be the biggest of its kind in the world. Those taking part will work a 4-day week for the next 6 months, getting 100% pay for 80% of the hours they would usually work, or research suggests the move can result in an increase in productivity. Well, I'm sure the whole of the country will be willing those participants on in that trial. Now, today is the second National Neuro Disabilities Awareness Day, and the UK's oldest neuro disabilities charity, British Home, are raising awareness of the challenges that 1 in 6 people face. Anyone could end up with a brain injury, and John Smalden from the charity spoke to Hebe about he hopes to raise awareness and better the advancement of personal care for those suffering.
Neurodisability is an umbrella term. It covers any sort of damage, disease that affects the nervous system and can lead to physical disability, behavioural issues, communication issues, and basically it's a very complicated range of conditions within that. It's not particularly well known about, and there are issues about how people access support once they're affected by it.
Could you give us an example of kind of a typical neuro disability that we might see in our everyday lives?
The classic, if you like, example would be someone who is an adult, previously healthy, has something like a stroke, something like that. And as a result, there is damage to their nervous system, their brain perhaps. And they find things significantly harder after that. So that can include not being able to communicate. It can include being only able to move with a wheelchair or with support. And organisations like us are around in terms of providing reablement, but obviously that's a life-changing situation.
And why do you think neurodisabilities are so underrepresented in society, and it's not something we hear about every day?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think one of the difficulties is because it's such an umbrella term, quite often it's very specific to the individual. So how neurodisability impacts one person will be very different to how it impacts somebody else. And it's quite a tough condition that we're talking about as well. It has both an impact on the individual who has that, but also it has a major impact on their family as well, their family and their friends. You know, someone who may previously have been able to, communicate, laugh, joke, etc., may now really struggle to do the things that they previously enjoyed. So it's a very, very tough condition. And I think sometimes it's just been a bit easier to look away sometimes. And obviously we are trying to raise awareness both of the fact that actually there is possibilities of positive and productive and independent living with neurodisability, and that it doesn't need to have such a negative impact and such a negative connotation.
British Home is one of the oldest charities in the UK. You guys are currently fundraising. Tell us how much you're looking to raise and what you're going to do with that money.
We've actually been in existence since 1861, on this site since 1892. We are very keen that our residents, the people who use our services, are able to play a full and active part in the community. A very basic aspect of that is being able to transport people safely and securely around. That's what we're raising money for right now. Any donations that we receive are going towards community engagement. Specifically, we need a new minibus, and that will cost around £40,000 to £50,000 for it to be safely and properly adapted. As I say, that's what we're fundraising for right now. And even something as basic as that will make a massive difference to our residents, because, they can't access the community any other way, really. And there are services that they can access, but also just regular social groups. For example, one of our residents, when they are able, they like to go off and visit Fulham Football Club. So that it's as basic as that, but it is as important as that too.
Well, staying with the issues affecting the Neuro system, to a topic not often discussed, but one that affects thousands here in the capital. New research from the education firm Smart Start Minds has revealed that though our knowledge about attention deficit disorder is strong, many of us aren't familiar with all of its possible treatments. The stats say over a third of Londoners think that being officially diagnosed with ADHD is worth it. Well, this comes as some are waiting more than 7 years to be diagnosed because of huge waiting lists on the NHS. Well, I spoke to Dr. Thomas Damhauser from the University College London. He's also the CEO of Smart Start Minds, about what he would like to see.
It seems that more people feel confident about identifying the core symptoms of ADHD, which includes struggling to concentrate, impulsivity, and hyperactivity. And also that people are more willing to consider non-traditional treatments for ADHD, including some which there is no evidence for, but I think that would appeal to people because they're easily available online. And also that very few people actually know about some of the more modern, really medical treatments like neurofeedback. I think one of the statistics to not miss is the fact that actually ADHD is the most common serious mental health condition that affects adults. So the recent estimates is that 6.7% of the population have the condition. So that means, 4.5 million people in the United Kingdom. And the costs to the people who suffer it and to society are actually, very high. So people who have the condition, they struggle with emotional health problems, with, academic achievement, with employment, with relationships. They're more likely to end up in trouble because of committing crime and with, serious physical health conditions. Whereas in terms of the statistics for what it costs the society is, the estimate is that it costs about £20,000 per person with ADHD per year. So that's £90 billion a year. And the shocking thing is that actually only 1 in 10 of, people with the condition are actually identified. Whilst it's the most treatable condition in psychiatry, with 90% of people responding to treatments. So I think those are the sort of the headline statistics to keep in mind when we're thinking about this condition.
Yeah, so is what you want to see then more testing for people so they can be helped quicker and better?
So, I've been campaigning for this wherever I can. So I think that children should ordinarily be tested in school and at regular intervals, because the condition develops. It's not that, you can test everyone at the age of 6 and, you'll find everyone. So most children have it by the age of 12, so 75% of children who go on to have the condition, but you can get it up to the age of 16. We don't generally believe that you can get ADHD after the age of 16. So, we test people, children's hearing and their vision and, test them on many other sort of ways. So for a test that generally takes 25 to 35 minutes to do, I personally am campaigning for that to be a standard sort of testing in school. In terms of adults, the testing is, or shall I say, evaluating for the condition is frustrating for most people. The waiting list times in the UK are long. I mean, in the area where I clinically work, it's between 18 months and 2 years. And the sort of paradox in ADHD is that the people who need it most, they find it the hardest to actually comply with the usual sort of waiting list because of the impulsivity. They're not good with queuing, with organising, with attending appointments.
Is ADHD a spectrum in terms of a condition? Because you get a lot of people that often claim to have ADHD that may not be. They might be saying it in jest just because they've got a short attention span sometimes, or they're a bit scatty around the office. But is there a real big difference when you cross that line to becoming, being a real ADHD sufferer?
It definitely is a spectrum. So I would say that, the symptoms of being, inattentive, being impulsive, and hyperactive, that occurs from time to time with most of us. And ordinarily, I'd say, if somebody is tired and hungry, they're more likely to be impulsive and not able to concentrate. The differences with people with ADHD, it's pervasive and it's across several sort of areas. So in children, for instance, we are looking for it to be present in school, but also to be present at home, in other settings. And the same with adults. So when we diagnose it and evaluate for it, we triangulate. We want to know if the person themselves, have symptoms, but if other people also observe symptoms. And then what we ordinarily do is we test their attention on a medical grade, let's say gold standard attention test, which is not the norm yet, but is very informative because it can actually tell us how someone's attention ability compares to people of their age, which is very useful for clients to actually have. But yes, and then at the end of the spectrum, it can be very severe.
Plenty more information about ADHD on the NHS's website and Smart Start Minds. Right, you're watching London Live News with James Dickman. A reminder of our top stories coming up after the break. Plus, into the world of women's football, former England junior Elizabeth Hope joins us as she crosses from pitch to stage in a new drama dedicated to the sport.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Welcome back to London Live News. Let's just have a reminder of our top story from today. Conservative MPs are voting on whether or not Boris Johnson should remain the leader of their party in the wake of the Partygate scandal. The confidence vote was announced this morning by Sir Graham Brady, chairman of the Conservative 1922 committee and the man who will oversee the secret ballot.
I'm not making a statement. I've sent out a written statement. I'm really here to answer any questions you have on the process or procedure. I'll say what was in the written statement if it's helpful to you, which is simply to say that the threshold of 15% of the parliamentary party seeking a vote of confidence in the Prime Minister has been passed. Therefore, a vote of confidence will take place within the rules of the 1922 committee. That vote will take place this evening in the House of Commons between 6 and 8 o'clock, and we will announce the result shortly thereafter. There will be arrangements for proxy votes for any colleagues who can't be present in person in Westminster, and we'll notify colleagues of those arrangements in the near future.
Did you communicate the news directly to the Prime Minister? How did he react?
I'm not going to go into detail of that. I have followed the rules that we have in place. I notified the Prime Minister yesterday that the threshold had been reached, and we agreed the timetable for a confidence vote to take place, and he shared my view, which is also in line with the rules that we have in place, that vote should happen as soon as could reasonably take place, and that would be today.
How many letters have you received?
I don't divulge that, but the threshold of 15% has been passed.
Now, the history of women's football is the focus of a play touring London and the UK ahead of the Women's Euros this summer. Set between 1892 and the present day, Offside follows 4 women who live and breathe the game. It stars Elizabeth Hope, a former Leeds United star who also played for England at a junior level. Well, she spoke with Hebe.
It's about women's football, and it is told through the perspective of 4 different female footballers, 2 modern day ones and 2 real life historical female footballers, and it deals with feminism and equality, the women's movement, and it's all told through the lens of women's football, and we see how far that's come back from the 1890s to the current day.
So tell us a bit about how you kind of put all these themes together. You say you cover feminism and you look back at the last, the last few decades of women's football and where it's got to. How do you manage to kind of work through quite a long period of time?
Yeah, sure. So this is the 3rd time actually that so the theatre company we're working with is called Futures Theatre. It's Future with an S Theatre, Futures Theatre, and they tell stories about women and non-binary people from perhaps marginalised communities. And so this is the 3rd time it's been on tour. The writers are amazing poets and playwrights, Holly McNeish and Sabrina Mahfouz. And originally when they were researching for the development of the play the first time round, they interviewed women from Man City, from Millwall, so they got a lot of their detail and inspiration from them. But then also, we look back at these female characters from the past that we unfortunately don't know as much about as we should. So 2 of the historical characters that myself and Charlotte Goslin play, we also have the amazing Amy Revell is also in it, but me and Charlotte, we play Emma Clark. She was the first black female professional footballer in Britain, and Lily Parr, who was this amazing left-footed Lancashire striker who had this killer left foot, and she's in the Hall of Fame now, the only woman at the moment, the Football Hall of Fame. So we tell it through movement, through poetry. It's lyrical, it's witty, it's tiring to do, but it's great. And you should, the audience should feel like they've witnessed a match, they've been part of it. So it's quite immersive, it's really dynamic.
And what drew you specifically to this play?
Growing up, football is a big part of my life, and when I was a teenager, I played a lot of football. I played for Leeds United Ladies, and I also was lucky enough I played for England under 15s and under 17s for a few years. So, I mean, this couldn't be like closer to my heart or my experience. So it means a lot to me. And I feel like having that experience, I have been able to bring a lot of my lived in knowledge of being in the England setup, of being a woman, playing football from a young age, and all the complications and the difficulties and the things that come with that. So my two favourite things, football and acting, and telling a powerful story about women, it ticks all the boxes for me.
We're seeing a bit of a shift in terms of the platform that women's football is being given, but we're most definitely not there in terms of for it being an equal playing field against men's football. What are you hoping that this play is going to do? Are you hoping that it's going to bring awareness to the fact that, you know, it still is not equal in terms of how we view the two games?
Yeah, completely. I mean, the crazy thing is that the FA banned in 1921, the FA banned women from playing football for 50 years on any FA affiliated grounds. And this was at the height of women's football, just after the World War One, when the women's football was huge, and they made loads of money for charities, and then the FA turned around and say, no, you're not playing. So women were basically set back for 50 years. So we've got 50 years of catching up to do, basically. And football has moved on a lot, and you see the WSL, and it's a fully professional league now. It's amazing, and you have these international players who come over to play in England, and that's incredible. And we are really at the forefront of it in this country, and it's really developed even from when this play was first on in 2017. It's really developed now in 2022. Like the players who play for England now, they're stars, and they are idols, but there's still a long way to go. And so I think hopefully, this play shines a light on that, and hopefully it inspires young women, any people, non-binary people to get involved in sport.
You say that the play includes like lots of different kind of themes, including poetry. What should people coming to see it expect from the play?
A little bit of everything. So it's there's a lot of so the historical characters are kind of written in spoken word poetry style. It's very dynamic. There's a lot of movement. So you're not. There is actually no footballs in the play, but there's a lot of movement. We have an amazing movement director we're working with today, Sarita. So there's a lot of movement that makes you feel like you're watching a match. But there's also really intimate, beautiful dialogue that Holly and Sabrina have written. So you really get a little bit of everything, which is challenging for an actor, but it's so exciting. And the thing with this play is we're going to theatres. We're going to Greenwich Theatre. We're going to Plymouth Theatre, but then we're also going to football grounds. So we're going to Leighton Orient FC, and we're actually doing the show in the changing rooms. So it's really immersive, and hopefully people who don't usually come to the theatre might come along.
Well, the play starts its UK tour tonight at the Greenwich Theatre before moving to Leighton Orient's ground tomorrow and Wednesday. More dates on the Future Theatres website. Right, stay with us for our final part of this evening's programme. If there are any budding script writers in the capital watching, stay tuned. You'll hear about a new initiative looking to fund young storytellers in the capital.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Welcome back to the final part of tonight's show. Now, emerging script writers in the capital are being given the opportunity to break into the industry and have a project financed and produced by industry professionals. A London-based production company has teamed up with a New York-based film fund who are actively looking for creatives in the capital to share their stories. Well, Tanya has been speaking to Ella, who is behind the fund.
It's extremely hard to find financing and to find a producer and to just send it on or apply when you don't have any previous work or you don't have a CV, or you have to pay to a lot of these types of funds and stuff. You have to pay an application fee and they're sometimes quite expensive, or it's just a really lengthy process.
Much like any industry, if you've studied for it, that's half the battle, but then you also need to have some sort of on-the-ground experience. And I guess in some ways it's quite an accessible career, because all you really need is a creative mind and a pen and a paper or a laptop. But I can imagine in other ways it's actually very difficult to get into, because it is such a desirable industry to work in and actually quite a competitive career to enter into.
With some of the other funds that I know I've submitted to in the past, you do just need previous work and credits and all of this. But if you've got an amazing script, then you've got an amazing script. I don't see what the impact of having done anything else is going to do, because then we'll help to produce it and we'll help do this. It just needs to be a really amazing script. So, and it's hard as a writer just sending it out into random submissions or unsolicited emails and stuff like that. I mean, we get scripts sometimes and it is hard to just process it unless we're dedicating time to look at scripts and to have that sort of situation in mind. So that's why it's also amazing for us to have this fund as a way to just really open it up and filter all the scripts and new writers.
So tell us, what is it that you're looking for? I'm sure everyone's dying to know, how can they get that sort of funded, curated, guided help? What is it that you're looking for when you're looking through these piles of scripts that you get?
I mean, we're not looking for anything in particular. I mean, we had the first year, we had such a range of projects, and it was amazing that we loved all of them, whether it was drama or comedy, and just different ways to tell a story. I think it's really key, because it's a short film fund and it's up to 15 pages in a way to really make a break into the industry like that. It is key to have a story that works within 15 pages and works within that time frame, that feels like it's meant to be told, rather than it's just a section of a bigger story in that sense. I mean, all scripts will be, but it just needs to feel like you're seeing enough in that time frame.
Yeah, so you're not quite looking for a sort of Lord of the Rings trilogy yet. You're starting small. Yeah. Last year was the first year that you launched the fund. Loads of people at home, looking to use their newfound free time, if you wish, to write the book that they've always wanted to write, or write that script. We're in a very different place in the world now. People are busy again. And what's the uptake been like? Have you had as much interest in the second year?
Yeah, definitely. We are seeing a lot of different genres and people that haven't submitted last time as well, more so than people that submitted last time. And I think the first year we had an amazing response, but a lot of the names, maybe I could place people that I've just come across or heard about, but this time there's such a new outreach, which is really amazing. And yeah, I'm excited to be reading them all.
The first year, tell us about who the winner was, what their piece was, and what are they doing now? How did this fund help them?
Hello. My name's Bernard. I live down the street at number 27.
No. I've seen you before. I'm Hannah.
Lovely to meet you, Hannah. Do you have a ladder?
Yes, so the winning piece last year was called Bibimbap for One. I love the name. And it was written by Daniel Casas. So he is an incredible writer. He's also a filmmaker. Since then, so Bibimbap is finished and is on the festival circuit. We're working with Festival Formula, which is a really amazing company just who represents films on the circuit, and he is now doing a lot more work. He does some amazing queer short films which are accessible on YouTube for everyone to see. So yeah, he's continuing to write, and I love the script. That's why we chose it. It really is just a incredible story, and it feels like a real privilege that we got to discover it and we got to work on his script with him.
Submissions for that fund close on the 15th of June, and you can check out their website, brokenflamesproductions.com, for more information. Now to a quite literally groundbreaking tale now. The Jurassic World franchise continues this coming weekend when the latest movie opens in cinemas. Dominion sees cast members spanning all of the dinosaur films reunite as the giant lizards make their home among us. Well, we heard from some of the stars as they gathered in Trafalgar Square.
It was so amazing to get to be reunited with Chris Pratt, and now obviously we're doing the movie with Laura Dern and Sam Neill and Jeff Goldblum. It's an incredibly exciting thing that this movie, Jurassic World Dominion, is the culmination of 30 years of filmmaking and storytelling. So we're all really proud to be here.
I was excited. Was it exciting to be reunited and mashed up with this cast? Very, very for me. I always wanted to be an actor, and there's hardly a part of acting that excites me more than the people I'm actually, getting to work with actors. I'm kind of starstruck and love struck with creative pretenders and actors. Laura Dern is a master of the cinematic arts, and so is Sam Neill. And getting to do that 30 years ago with them, and it coming out nicely with the great Steven Spielberg directing our activities, and people liking it over these decades was thrilling. So getting together back with them for the first time since we've been on screen together was so exciting. And then I'm going to say Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard, giant characterizations that they've made over these last couple of movies.
Well, we thought we would be preparing in very traditional ways, and it's an action movie, and we were training and getting to know each other and figuring out the script, and then, as we all know, we suddenly were in the center of a global pandemic, and we had started. So we ended up being the first production back, and all the rules went away, and none of us knew how to make a movie and make it safe. And the entire film community came together in support of us to learn a new model of how to work. And our cast and crew were there last night. You know, our amazing stand-ins who had to be there because we could only be on set for a couple of minutes at a time because of exposure. It was the middle of the surge here in the UK and a very devastating time. They sacrificed so much, leaving their families. We all lived together for months, and they were amazing. And we are so lucky, and none of us will ever have forgotten the closeness of going through that time together.
Anything anyone's ever seen before. All of those were very exciting prospects, so we just give us the chance and we'll take it.
There you have it. Jurassic World Dominion is out on Friday. One last look at the weather before we leave you. A dry night to come this evening. Overnight lows of around 12 degrees. Tuesday looks like it will offer more in the way of sunshine and temperatures reaching around 22 degrees Celsius. Humid and a thundery start into Wednesday with some risk of heavy downpours. Well, that is all we've got time for this evening. Thank you for watching, and do join us again at the same time tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed your long weekend. But for now, good night.